So reviews, they are a critical part of your marketing and sales. Probably the single most important marketing asset. If you consider probably 97% of your guests will read online reviews. I would say that's pretty much everyone. And if you think every booking that you've received is the guest at some point is involved at looking at your review score or reading some of your reviews, you get an idea of just, the value that they have. And as well as making you more popular, your reviews also give you the option to increase your prices. Most of the hard work you do ends up in amazing reviews. So as well as getting a sense of achievement and satisfaction, they can also be a signal that you could increase your prices. And we often underestimate the value of great reviews in the minds of our guests. And guests will pay for quality, and that's an indication that probably your price could be increased if your reviews are really super brilliant. And reviews are, they're a way of creating trust, not just for guests, but also now for search engines and tools like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. Reviews are a way of signaling to these tools that you're worth showing in their results. And because of that, your guests look at them a lot. So let's just see how guests value reviews. From a guest perspective, it's easy to see why they love them because they can trust them. They're a credible reference on how your business will perform for them if they, book your place. And that trust comes from, a no strings attached, idea around reviews. The guests aren't forced to write reviews. They've opted into that process. The guests want to tell of their first-hand experience, and they want other guests to know about that. And that's probably because they've read reviews themselves in order to pick that accommodation. And so they feel like it's incumbent on them to share their experience as well so others can benefit from it. So reviews aren't just for your guests though. Some of you will have noticed that when you search on Google, you now have an option for AI mode, and we'll look at that in a minute. But these tools like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini, they provide a very different search experience. They shortlist and summarize in an easy to read way. It's like a conversation, so you can go back and forth as if you were actually talking to the tool. And they love language, these tools, and they can read and process literally thousands of reviews in seconds. So by collecting reviews, you're kind of building information that these tools need. And the more information you have in the right place, the more likely it is that they will find you and trust you. And having, in the other way, having inconsistent or outdated reviews can mean that you get left out of their recommendations. And they don't just look at something simple like the star average. They look to understand your property, and they do that by scanning all of your reviews for keywords that give them an idea of the sort of feeling or vibe of your business. So where a guest has used the word like romantic or quiet, quirky, authentic or modern, they're picking up those things to try and understand your business. So ChatGPT and Gemini have increased the importance of reviews, but they've also changed how they create value. And let's have a quick look at that in action here. So before I start with this, I'm just running a very normal search on Google here. And you can see on the right-hand side of the toolbar, there's an option for AI mode, but I'm not actually using that. But I've written in a search there, which is personalized to my specific needs. I'm asking for a quiet but central B&B with great reviews and a good breakfast in air. So I'm using conversational language like I'm talking to Google. So when you play that, I've just put in that search, and then I'll go to Google and I'm just asking it to do a normal search. And Google's gone away and it's shortlisted and filtered the results, giving an AI overview, you'll see there, of about 3 or 4 B&Bs that it thinks are suitable, and they've provided really easy to read summaries, based on the needs. And it will load the results below as well into the maps, just so that if I wanted to make a booking, I've got the price and I've got the availability there just ready for booking. And the details that it provides in the summaries, they match what I've been looking for in my query. So it's really simple to use and very eloquent. Then if you click through on the actual name of the property, in this instance, it's taken me straight to their Google Hotel ads. And the business here is doing the right thing. They've got the better price direct. And it's just making that process of search and book really easy. It's cutting down the amount of options that I look at, and it's making a selection based on what I've asked. And if you ask follow-up questions as well, it'll also provide answers to that. And those answers will be based on your previous questions as well. So it's remembering what you've asked it before. So really in 2026, the value of reviews for small independent hotels and B&Bs has shifted from being purely a reputational tool to becoming a core part of how an AI finds and recommends you to potential guests. And these tools are readily available and they're being used. We think roughly a third of people are using AI in their travel planning, and that's growing really fast. But I'm now going to hand over to Craig, and he's going to show you how the Reputation Suite can help you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And that gives us a really great insight into the high value of reviews, and it just points out that they're even higher now that ChatGPT and Google AI are going to be digesting your reviews. So you really don't want to be left out. But we all know it's difficult to get guests to post a review. The reality is that only a few will do it. So to increase your chances of getting those valuable reviews, you need to make sure that everyone gets asked. And that's the hard work unless you've got a bit of help. So this is where the 80% of guests will only leave a review if they've been prompted by the hotel. So to get reviews, you need to ask for them. And that's pretty tedious, potentially a little bit embarrassing or awkward, and certainly time consuming. So the secret is to automate that process and make sure everyone gets an email thanking them for their stay and asking for a review. So if you can see there on the screen, you can see a number of email examples there which have been branded with a logo and colors, and the text in the review email there is up to the hotel themselves to set, and there's a nice big button which says submit review. So that makes it really easy and simple for the guest to just click on submit review. The other thing is that they'll be translated. You can see the middle one there has been translated. So if the language of the customer is different from, it will just automatically translate them. So the big point here is that, high season coming up for most of us. High season is when the guest stays peak, and it's also obviously where your peak opportunity is to get reviews. But that's also when you're too busy to stop and ask everyone for reviews. That's why you need a system that automates the review requests with these kind of elegant branded email in your own words. And then after the guest clicks on that submit review button, let's have a look at what that does. It gives you, we think it's much better to give the guest a choice. So once they've hit the submit, then if you give them a choice of where to leave the review, it kind of respects their preferences and then makes it easier for guests. So nice big buttons make it look great and professional. But then when you've given them the choice of where to do a review, for example, they might have a Gmail account, maybe that's always open on their browser, and then they wouldn't even need to log in to leave a review for you on Google. Or some of them might prefer to do one on TripAdvisor or Facebook. It's easier. The easier you make it, the more likely that guests will complete the process. And this is true for just about anything. So nice big buttons and a choice. Let's look at a quick summary of what we've talked about. Basically, you've got to ask for reviews to get them, and automating that means that no one's missed out, so you get 100% hit rate. Doing these three things consistently will certainly lead to an increase in the number of your reviews, the freshness of your reviews, and you'll get a higher position on the review rankings. We've seen it happen again and again. Robert's been using the Reputation Suite for 4 years now. When he started, his TripAdvisor rankings were in the 30s and in the 10s. So that would be like on page 2 or page 3 even. And now, 4 years later, every single one of those 4 hotels is in the top 10 for Glasgow. And that's very valuable kind of exposure. But it shows that consistent use of a tool can, boost your overall ranking over time. And the Reputation Suite has definitely helped him with that automating. It also filters and it captures. We'll talk about the filtering and the capturing of real guest emails in a minute as well. He still has he still has to have a great service and to get great reviews. But more than ever, guests are leaving reviews because they've been nudged. So while the Reputation Suite can't create a happy guest, it can certainly make more of them leave a review. It creates a pipeline of fresh new reviews all of the time. So what about the things? What about when things don't go quite so well? This is where if you've got an unhappy guest in front of you, you'd be crazy to ask them to leave a review. So we want to try to put that same process in an electronic form. So we want to help you filter out bad reviews before they happen. This was what I mentioned before about the filtering. So the Reputation Suite does this electronically by filtering out bad reviews before they become public. It uses like an initial rating as a filter. So I'm just going to try and share my screen. So this has sometimes taken a little bit of a time. We tried to do it a little bit earlier. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to go onto my phone here because it will show you. There we go. So I'm sharing the screen there. So this is what happens when a guest presses the submit review button. So they go to an initial rating here, and it says rate your stay at the Deco House. So it's quite easy, 5 stars there. So for example, if I click on the 1 star, it's just taking me to a form here which I can fill in, and that will be like personal feedback. So the feedback for somebody who's rated you initially 1 star is just going to be internal. It does give them the opportunity to fill it all out and say what went wrong. But the point that's most important here is that they haven't been given the public listings. So if I now change to a 4 star, so here we now got review on Google, review on TripAdvisor, or review on Facebook. So 4 and 5 star will give me those links. So what's happening there is like it's nice big buttons, easy, a good choice of reviews, but it's also filtering out some of the bad ones. So that also helps your rankings over time. It will do that. So how can we further maximize review request delivery? So this we also realized, we looked at the statistics, and we found that sending a review request to a guest direct email makes a really significant difference to the number of reviews that you get. So when we compared the guest's direct email address compared to an OTA fake email address, the data shows that a guest's direct email address is twice as likely to result in a review request. So that means so for us that's a challenge. How do we get more direct email addresses for you? So the Reputation Suite automatically swaps out the OTA emails for the direct email. If we have the direct email address, it will send it to that and it won't send it to the OTA one. So you can see in that screen there that we've swapped those out. And there's two ways that we get these direct emails that we can help you do that. Freetobook messaging system asks guests for real email addresses during the digital registration. So that would come into the booking and would be used. And the other one is Guest Appy that asks guests for their direct email address when they land on any Guest Appy page. In the case where we'll detect, when they land on the page, we'll detect if there is a real email address. And if there isn't, then we'll ask the guests for it. Obviously, if we've already got one, we won't ask for it. But if there's an OTA email, we'll do that. So you can say that messaging, Guest Appy, and the Reputation Suite are working together to your advantage to get more reviews, because Freetobook builds its own services. We can make these joined up to help your business with additional advantages and opportunities. The Reputation Suite automatically swaps out OTA fake emails, so there's no need for you to do anything. It just does that automatically. This page here just shows you this email here has been swapped out, and it shows you that email address, the direct email address, had come from Guest Appy, and that goes sent out, and then it's going to result in twice as many reviews just over time statistically. There is another way that messaging can help you in the Reputation Suite. We kind of realized that guests were using messaging and guest appy before and during their stay. So we thought, why not surface the review request in messaging itself? So looking at the picture on the left, we added a feature so that guests could see the Reputation Suite submit view button and text inside the messaging thread. So you can see it in the left picture. So the Reputation Suite is there sending an email, and it's also surfacing the review button inside the guest messaging and inside guest appy. And not only that, you can see on the left-hand side there, we're showing you where the review has been completed. So in this case, the guest has given a 5-star. That was the initial rating that you saw. They've done a 5-star and they've clicked the Google button. So you can see the little Google symbol and the 5 stars. If you have a look at the picture on the right, the guest has not responded to the review email on the picture on the right. So that gives you an opportunity to maybe send them a little message to nudge them. Because the review button is still in the thread, you don't have to send another review button. You just have to say, oh, maybe you forgot about it. Would you mind leaving a review? We do automatically send out a second request to nudge the guest 48 hours after the first one. But if that still doesn't work, you can do it yourself as well, just to give them a push. And that, again, brings in more reviews. So, that's a little wrap for me. So I'm going to pass over to Ian for some closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. There was a lot of detail in there, but it's nice to see how we've thought through a lot of different areas that can mean that by connecting different parts of Free2Book, we can increase the number of reviews that you collect from your guests. In previous webinars, we've stressed the importance of Google reviews, as saying it's the most important place to have them. That's increasingly the case now with the likes of ChatGPT and Google's Gemini, and how we focused on getting them there. So this is just a short quote from Google, which explains that, yeah, that's something that they believe in. But really, to summarize everything from today, these are the things that we know make a real difference. One is, number one, keeping your reviews really fresh. So that's consistently going out and asking literally every guest. And you can catch every guest if you're using an automated email system. And then also, we'll automatically remind them as well, and that maximizes the review collections. And again, we'll swap out any OTA emails for direct email addresses where we've managed to collect them. And all of that added together means that around about 33% of the guests that get an email are actually going through to give an initial star rating. So they're engaging in that review process, almost a third of your guests. And then we make that even easier for them by, giving them a choice of where they could leave a review. And if you go in and you brand it as well, you're kind of adding to that experience and you're creating more trust. And you might collect the odd poor review through the feedback form as well, but you can always ensure you have a constant flow of great reviews in the right places. And that means that if one bad review escapes onto the likes of Google and that, it gets buried very quickly. Just really in short, independent hotels and B&Bs pretty much always outperform big chain hotels when it comes to reviews, in terms of the quality and the content. And you can just look at any review platform and you'll see the scores are always much higher for small businesses. What's critical is that you benefit from all your hard work and the exceptional guest experiences that you've created. So we hope this was really helpful to show you how you get more guests to review you and how you get more of those reviews in the right place. And I think that's about it. So Thanks a lot for your attention. The Reputation Suite does work really well, so you can sign up in the Plus tab